I love my home.
I thought you were going to say you love me.
Well, it is Valentine's Day,
Right.
so I should fall in love with my house over and over again.
Moving forward with the Dekker team. Moving forward together with the Dekker team.
Welcome to another episode of Life's Inside Track. I'm Yetta Dekker.
And I'm Ken Dekker.
And it's where we get to share techniques, thoughts, tips, tools, and tactics that we all need. We all deserve. You, I, everyone. So we can turn our house into home, our families thrive, and we get to build wealth wisely through real estate. And you could say you love me, not just the house.
Oh, but that's a given.
Okay. So what we're pretty thrilled about is that this time we're going to unpack a little bit. How do you know that this house or the house you're looking at is the one that you want to fall in love with, not just for a few days, but that will last you for years.
Mm-hmm.
Years or years?
Easy
Years.
for you to say.
I know, for years.
Yeah. And it is Valentine's Day. Did I say that?
Yes.
Happy Valentine's Day, love.
Thank
and
you.
happy Valentine's to all the people out there. Yay! I love Valentine's Day.
I know
It's
you
the
do.
day of, well, every day is a day of love with you. So here we go. Let's talk about housing. You said, how do you know when you're falling in love with a house?
With
When you're
the
looking for one.
Right.
The
when you're-
one. How do you know it's the one?
Right. So one of the ways you know it's the one is you're trying to talk yourself into it even when it doesn't make sense.
Ooh. Talk to me about that. What do you mean when it doesn't make sense? You're
Well-
talking yourself into it.
Yeah, because sometimes it's the one that you didn't fall in love with, like this house that we're living in.
Mm-hmm.
When we went through the house, I went through the house telling you and the kids, because they came with us. We were all realtors at the time, and we
Mhm.
decided it was a fun outing. We were looking for comparables or relevant data for another property we were bringing to market in Manotick. And so we decided to all go take a look at this particular house because it was relevant data
Mhm.
and it had been on the market a long time.
Right.
Long time. 10 years, long time. Yeah, for real. And so when we went to look at it, I went through the house because in the back of our heads, we had wanted to move to Manotick for many years. And we had the waterfront property where the office was. We'd had it already like 5-6 years at that point. And yet I still had my heart on wanting to move into Manotick.
Yeah.
And so we walked through the house, and what did I do? I told you what I didn't like.
Mm-hmm.
I told you everything I didn't like.
Yeah.
But then I started talking myself into it because it was the one I actually did want. So it didn't logically make sense because it wasn't the right, really even layout at the time. Aspects of it weren't the right layout.
Mm-hmm.
The decor was all off. The flooring was all off. Where the walls were located, especially in the lower level, was all off. Color of floor mantles, and it was just bad. But I was talking myself into it. So
Mhm.
sometimes you can tell by what the dialogues you're having,
Right. I think sometimes
the inner dialogue.
Yeah, the inner dialogue. I think sometimes you're justifying something because there aren't really houses that are 100%
Right,
typically. So there's going to be maybe 20% that you don't like.
right.
And you talk yourself into it saying, oh, it's not that bad, or it's not that far to drive, or because you're falling in love with the house. I think that's what you're trying to say.
Yeah, and because what I did love about it
Mhm.
is it backs a ravine.
Mm-hmm.
It's on a cul-de-sac.
Mm-hmm.
And it's at the very back corner end of a subdivision. And so it's quiet, it's tranquil. It gave me the outdoor space. It gave me even the floor plan. And at the time, my dad was sick with cancer and it had an in-law suite. So it seemed like it was going to solve that challenge as well. Now, Dad's doing well still. He's still with us. It's been a decade. So that's fantastic. So he never did move in, or Mom never moved in. But it was that it opened up possibility and options. So there
Mhm.
was the bigger deal things that I loved about it, even if cosmetically it was a nightmare.
Yeah. You know how another way you can tell it's the one?
How can you tell?
You compare it or you compare every other house to it. It's kind of like the centerpiece, and you go, oh, is this house as good as this one? Is this house as good as that one? Is this house as good as that one? And that way, oh, that's the one.
And if you've been working with the Dekker team, we have a rating system where you look at 5 aspects of the home, including the interior and the exterior, location and community and neighborhood. And you rate each of those 5 aspects on a scale of 1 low, 10 high. And if it gets a really high rating, because if you're an analytical, less emotional, more analytical, the numbers may prove to you that this is the one.
Logical thinking.
Yeah. I mean, there is some element of emotion, but I used to think everybody was going to know it was the one just by walking into it. And I can tell you, some of my highly analytical clients, that's not going to happen for them. It never did. And so I would set them up for a fall. So using a rating system where it scores high on all the elements that are important to you may be the way you find out. And if you're thinking, well, I'd like to know, how do I buy a house? How do I get into my first investment property? Like, it's not just, how do I fall in love with the numbers even? Sometimes it's the numbers that work. You might just want to get a ticket for the Building Wealth Wisely workshop that is March 20th. And the great news is all you have to do is go to dekkerteam.com website, and there's that plus a whole lot more offerings on that website, including a business conference coming up June 5th. So spoiler alert, just go to the Dekker Team website and you'll find all sorts of resources there, even an opportunity to book your clarity call. Yeah.
And the beauty is, buying your first house and buying the right one is part of building wealth wisely. Now, how do we also know if this is the house for you? And you will know as well, because you start placing furniture in your imagination. You start setting up the room. Where would my couch be? Do I need to buy a new couch? That kind of stuff, right?
And you might even just linger. Like, you can't get yourself to leave the home when you're there looking at it. It's kind of like you're watching the time, but you're not really watching the time because you feel like you're home. So you hang out to your max time or even overshoot your time.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe you even go and sit on the couch. I find that often is an indication that this feels like the place. People pull out a dining room chair or the kitchen chair, or they go sit on the couch, and it's like, we're not moving in yet, are we? And that's just an indication. You might know it's the one when you start behaving like it's home.
Yeah. You also might get that feeling of almost deja vu. It's like, oh, I get the same kind of feeling when I lived in my house, or lived at my grandma's house, or I went to my grandma's house. It gave me that homey feeling. You might get that sense that it's like, this is the same feeling I had, that same feeling of comfort, of security. And it doesn't mean that the place is immaculate or like a designer house or any. It can be the country charm. It can be the neighborhood. There's so many factors that will affect whether you fall in love with a house or not. And love is an important piece.
It is, because if you love it, you're likely to stay a little longer, and that's good for the pocketbook too.
Yeah. So my question is it time for you to get your custom home search? Just reach out to us and we can set that up. And we're glad that we're positioning you to build wealth wisely, because it's about much more than just money.
Moving forward with the Dekker team. Moving forward together with the Dekker team.